I was running down the driveway of the biggest mansion I'd ever been in, tears streaming down my face, my heels in my hand because I couldn't run in them, my dress probably ripped from catching it on something during my escape, when a black SUV pulled up beside me. The window rolled down and a man in a security uniform leaned out. "Miss Martinez, please get in the vehicle. Mr. Westbrook asked us to make sure you get home safely. You shouldn't be walking alone at this hour." I didn't know how he knew my name. I'd only been at the party for maybe 2 hours before everything fell apart, but the driver seemed professional and I was crying too hard to think clearly, and I was scared to be alone on this dark street in an unfamiliar neighborhood, so I got in the back seat. That decision, made in a moment of vulnerability and poor judgment, set in motion a series of events that would consume the next year of my life. My name is Maya Martinez. I'm 26 years old, work as a social media coordinator for a mid-sized tech company, and what I'm about to tell you is the story of how I went from attending a party I didn't want to go to being trapped in a situation with a powerful man who saw my emotional breakdown as an opportunity rather than a boundary to respect. It started 3 weeks earlier when my coworker Jenna invited me to what she described as an exclusive party at a tech billionaire's house in the hills outside Seattle. Damian Westbrook was hosting his annual summer party, and Jenna had somehow scored invitations through a friend who worked in his company's PR department. "It'll be amazing," Jenna said over lunch in our office cafeteria, her voice excited and insistent. "There will be celebrities and investors and important people from the tech world. The food will be incredible, like Michelin star-level catering, open bar with top-shelf everything, none of that cheap wine they serve at most parties. And the house is supposed to be absolutely insane, like something from Architectural Digest. This could be huge for networking. You could meet people who might help your career. Maya, you have to come with me." I wasn't particularly interested in networking at a party or in meeting tech billionaires or in spending my Saturday night making small talk with strangers who were probably all more successful and wealthier than I'd ever be. But Jenna was persistent, texting me links to articles about Damian and his companies, sending me photos of his estate that people had posted online, building up the party as this unmissable opportunity that I'd regret passing up. And I didn't have other plans that weekend, and I figured one night at a fancy party wouldn't hurt, maybe it would even be fun. So I said yes. The party was indeed at a massive estate that made my breath catch when we first drove through the gates. Stone walls that looked like they belonged to a European castle, ornate iron gates that opened automatically when security checked our invitations, a driveway that wound through professionally landscaped gardens with sculptures and fountains for what felt like a quarter mile before reaching the house itself. The house was modern and glass and stone, probably 15,000 square feet or more, lit up dramatically against the night sky with views that must have been incredible during the day. Security guards in black suits checking invitations at the gate and positioned throughout the property. Valet parking with luxury cars lined up, Teslas and Mercedes and BMWs and cars I couldn't even identify. Waiters in crisp white shirts circulating through the crowds with champagne flutes and appetizers that were too pretty to eat, tiny works of art on each plate. Everything screamed wealth and exclusivity and being in a world I absolutely did not belong to. Jenna was in heaven, immediately going into networking mode, introducing herself to anyone who looked important or successful, collecting business cards, laughing too loudly at jokes that probably weren't funny. I felt out of place and uncomfortable in the dress I'd bought specifically for this party, but that now felt cheap compared to what other women were wearing, nursing a glass of wine and trying to blend into the background while watching the party happen around me like I was observing a different species in their natural habitat. That's when Damian Westbrook approached me for the first time. I'd seen photos of him before in tech magazines and news articles and TechCrunch features. He was 42 years old, attractive in that polished, successful, wealthy way, tall with good posture and perfect teeth and expensive clothes that looked casual but probably cost more than my monthly rent. He'd made his billions through a series of successful startups in his 20s and early 30s, then strategic investments in other companies, and was known in the industry for being both brilliant and ruthless in business, someone who made things happen and didn't tolerate incompetence or failure. "Miss Martinez," he said, appearing at my side without warning, like he'd materialized out of the crowd specifically to talk to me. "You look like you're not enjoying my party." That's a failure on my part as a host. I'm Damian Westbrook, though you probably already know that. Can I get you a better drink than whatever that is, or introduce you to some people who might be more interesting than whoever you've been talking to? I was surprised he knew my name since we'd never met, and I was nobody important in his world. "I'm fine, thanks, just not much of a party person," I said, trying to sound polite but not encouraging. "I appreciate the invitation, though. Your home is beautiful." He smiled, the kind of smile that seemed designed to put people at ease and make them feel special. "You're here with Jenna Chen, correct? She mentioned she was bringing a friend from work when she confirmed her attendance. You do social media coordination for TechFlow Solutions. That's important work, actually. More important than most people realize. Social media can make or break a company these days, especially in tech, where reputation and image matter so much." The fact that he knew who I was, who I worked with, what I did for a living, felt both flattering and slightly invasive. Jenna must have told his PR person detailed information about me when she got the invitations. Or maybe he just made it his business to know things about people who came to his parties, did background research on guests as a matter of course. We talked for maybe 15 minutes, casual conversation about my work and the challenges of social media coordination, and his various companies and his thoughts on the tech industry. Damian was charming and attentive, asking follow-up questions that showed he was actually listening, making me feel like I was the only person at the party worth talking to, despite being surrounded by probably more interesting and important guests. It was probably a skill he'd developed for business purposes, making people feel valued and important so they'd be more likely to work with him or invest in his projects or whatever he needed from them. But it felt genuine and nice in the moment. Then he excused himself to greet other guests who were arriving, and I went back to my corner and my wine and waiting for a polite amount of time to pass before I could convince Jenna to leave without her being angry that I'd ruined her networking opportunity. About an hour later, I was standing on the back terrace overlooking the property's elaborate gardens and infinity pool and the city lights in the valley below, when a man I didn't know approached me. He was probably in his mid-50s, clearly drunk based on how he was walking and talking, wearing an expensive suit that didn't quite fit right. He immediately invaded my personal space, standing closer than was comfortable, his breath smelling like alcohol and cigars. He made comments about my appearance that were inappropriate and made me deeply uncomfortable, asking personal questions about whether I was single and what I was doing later tonight, and whether I wanted to get out of here and go somewhere more private. I tried to politely extract myself from the conversation, but he wasn't taking any of my hints, moving closer whenever I stepped back, his hand suddenly on my lower back in a way that felt possessive and wrong. I was starting to panic, my heart racing, looking around for Jenna or anyone who might help or intervene, when Damian appeared, seemingly out of nowhere. "Marcus, I think you've had enough to drink for tonight," Damian said, his voice firm but not quite angry, the tone of someone used to being obeyed. "Why don't you let security call you a car home? You can pick up your own car tomorrow when you're sober." The drunk man, Marcus, immediately backed off when Damian spoke, apologizing and stumbling away quickly like a chastised child. Damian turned to me with an expression of genuine concern. "Are you all right?" Marcus can be wildly inappropriate when he drinks, which is unfortunately most of the time. "I apologize for his behavior at my party. You shouldn't have to deal with that kind of harassment." "I'm fine," I said, though I was shaking slightly from the interaction and from the adrenaline. "Thank you for stepping in. I didn't know what to do." "Of course. Listen, why don't you come inside where it's quieter and away from people like Marcus? I have a library on the second floor where you can take a break from the party if you need some space to decompress. It's private and comfortable, and no one will bother you there." It seemed like a genuinely kind offer from someone who just helped me out of an uncomfortable and potentially dangerous situation. So I followed Damian inside, through rooms full of people and expensive furniture and art, up a grand staircase with a banister that looked like it was carved from a single piece of wood, to a library that was bigger than my entire apartment, filled with floor-to-ceiling bookshelves full of leather-bound volumes, comfortable leather chairs that probably cost thousands of dollars each, the smell of old books and expensive wood and pipe tobacco. "This is where I come when my own parties get overwhelming," Damien said, with a self-deprecating smile. "Hosting is exhausting, and sometimes I need to escape from my own guests." "Feel free to stay as long as you need. Can I get you some water or coffee or anything else that might help?" "Just some space," I said. "Thank you for letting me hide out here." He left me there, and I sat in one of the leather chairs, trying to calm down from the interaction with Marcus, trying to stop my hands from shaking, feeling grateful that Damien had intervened, but also feeling stupid for being at this party in the first place, where I clearly didn't fit in, and where drunk men apparently felt entitled to harass women they didn't know. I should have stayed home. After about 20 minutes of sitting in the quiet library, I decided I should probably find Jenna and see if she was ready to leave, or at least tell her I was calling a car service home. I made my way back downstairs and started looking for her among the probably 150 people scattered through the house and the grounds and the various entertainment areas. I finally found her in a side room off the main hall that seemed to be set up as a game room with a pool table and a bar, and what I saw made my stomach drop and my breath catch. Jenna was kissing a man I didn't recognize, pressed up against the wall next to the pool table, his hands on her body in ways that made it very clear this wasn't just a friendly kiss, but something more intimate and deliberate. The problem was that Jenna had a boyfriend, Mark, who she'd been dating for 3 years, who she lived with in an apartment they'd rented together, who she'd told me multiple times she was planning to marry, who I'd met several times, and who seemed like a genuinely good guy who was completely devoted to her. Jenna saw me standing in the doorway and her face went pale, her eyes wide with panic. She pushed the man away from her and rushed toward me. "Maya, wait, it's not what it looks like," she said, even though it was obviously exactly what it looked like. "I mean, it is what it looks like, but please don't tell Mark, please. This is just a stupid, drunken mistake. It doesn't mean anything. It won't happen again, I swear." I felt betrayed and confused and angry all at once. Jenna was supposed to be my friend. Mark was a good guy who didn't deserve to be cheated on by someone he trusted and loved. But I also didn't want to be the one to blow up their relationship or create massive drama at someone else's party surrounded by strangers. "I need to leave," I said, turning away from her and walking back toward the main hallway. "Maya, please, don't leave like this. We need to talk about this." But I was already walking away quickly, heading for the front door, trying to process what I'd seen and what it meant, and whether I had any obligation to tell Mark, or if that was Jenna's responsibility. Jenna followed me, her voice getting louder and more desperate as I kept walking. "You can't just leave. You're totally overreacting to this. Everyone makes mistakes. You're being judgmental and dramatic. It was just a kiss. Why are you making such a big deal out of it?" Other people at the party were starting to notice our confrontation, turning to watch as Jenna followed me toward the entrance, her voice getting louder and more defensive. I felt overwhelmed and upset and embarrassed by the attention, and I just wanted to get out of there as fast as possible. I pushed through the heavy front door and started down the long driveway in the dark, tears starting to stream down my face from the stress and the feeling of betrayal, and feeling like I didn't know my friend at all, like maybe I'd never really known her. That's when the black SUV with the security guard pulled up beside me, offering me a ride home. Looking back now, with 2 years of distance and therapy and understanding of how manipulation works, I should have called an Uber or called another friend or called literally anyone else or walked to the main road and figured something out from there. But I was crying too hard to think clearly, and I was upset and vulnerable and not making good decisions, and the offer of a safe ride home from Damien's security, from someone connected to the person who'd already helped me once that night, seemed not just reasonable but kind and thoughtful. The security guard, whose name I never got, drove me all the way home to my apartment across the city, professional and quiet in the front seat, not asking questions about why I was crying or what had happened at the party. The drive took almost 40 minutes, and the whole time I sat in the back seat crying and replaying the scene with Jenna and wondering what I should do about what I'd seen. When we arrived at my apartment building, the security guard got out and opened my door for me, then handed me a business card. "This is Mr. Westbrook's personal assistant's contact information," he said. "Mr. Westbrook wanted me to give this to you in case you need anything or want to reach out to him. He was concerned about you leaving the party so upset and wanted to make sure you have a way to contact him if you need help with anything." The gesture seemed thoughtful and kind at the time, like Damien was a good person who cared about his guests even when they were basically strangers to him. I thanked the security guard, went inside to my small apartment that felt even smaller after spending the evening in that massive estate, and tried to process the complete disaster of an evening. Jenna texted me repeatedly over the next few days, long, rambling messages apologizing and begging me not to tell Mark and insisting that what I'd seen wasn't really cheating because they'd just been kissing and it hadn't gone further than that and she'd been drunk and it didn't mean anything and she still loved Mark and was going to marry him and I'd ruin everything if I said anything. I didn't respond to most of her messages. I was too angry and disappointed and conflicted about what my obligation was in this situation. Then I got a text from an unknown number. "This is Damien Westbrook. I hope it's okay that I got your number from Jenna. I wanted to check in and make sure you're all right after the party on Saturday. You left pretty upset and I felt partially responsible since it happened at my event. If you'd like to talk or need anything at all, please don't hesitate to reach out." The text felt kind and concerned in a way that surprised me. I responded thanking him for his concern and for the ride home and saying I was fine, just dealing with some complicated friend drama that had nothing to do with him or his party. He replied within minutes. "Friend drama can honestly be the worst kind because you care about the person but they've let you down in some fundamental way. If you want to talk it through with someone who's outside the situation and won't judge, I'm a genuinely good listener. No pressure though, the offer stands if you need it." Over the next week, Damien and I exchanged occasional texts. Nothing inappropriate or forward or romantic, just friendly conversation. He'd check in on how I was doing and whether I'd resolved the situation with my friend. He'd share funny observations about tech industry news and startup culture. He'd ask my opinion on social media trends and strategies, treating me like an expert whose thoughts had value. It felt flattering and surprising to have someone so successful and important taking time out of his presumably very busy schedule to talk to me. When he invited me to meet him for coffee 2 weeks after the party, I said yes. Coffee led to lunch a few days later, lunch led to dinner the following week, dinner led to spending more time together, going to events and museums and nice restaurants. Damien was charming and attentive in person, just like he'd been at the party, always interested in what I had to say, always making me feel valued and important and listened to in ways that felt rare and special. He'd send cars to pick me up for our dates because he knew I didn't have a car and took the bus everywhere and he didn't want me dealing with public transportation. He'd take me to expensive restaurants where I'd never been and couldn't have afforded on my own, places where the menu didn't have prices and where knowing which fork to use actually mattered. He'd give me thoughtful gifts between dates, books I'd mentioned wanting to read or products from beauty brands I followed on Instagram, things that showed he was paying attention to what I said and what I liked. About 6 weeks after the party, Damien asked me to be in an exclusive relationship with him. We were having dinner at his penthouse downtown, another property he owned for nights when he didn't want to drive back to the estate, and he took my hand across the table. "Maya, I really enjoy spending time with you. You're intelligent and funny, and you see the world in ways that are different from most people I know. I'd like to see where this could go if we were both committed to building something real together. I'd like you to be my girlfriend, officially." I was hesitant at first because of the age difference. 16 years between 26 and 42 felt significant, and because of the massive wealth gap that made me uncomfortable, and because of the obvious power imbalance in our relationship. But Damien was persuasive and had answers for all my concerns. Age is just a number, and maturity matters more than the year you were born.
Money doesn't matter in relationships between people who see each other as equals. I don't see you as someone beneath me, Maya. I see you as an intelligent, interesting woman who I enjoy spending time with and want to get to know better. I want to see where this goes. Can we try that together?" So I agreed to be his girlfriend. That was my first major mistake. The relationship moved quickly from that point, faster than any relationship I'd been in before. Damien wanted to see me constantly, texting throughout every day, having dinner together most nights, spending entire weekends together at his estate. When I mentioned I couldn't always be available because I had work and friends and a life beyond our relationship, he'd say things like, "But I thought we were supposed to be a priority to each other. Don't you want to spend time with me? I want to spend every moment I can with you." Or he'd offer to solve whatever conflict existed that was preventing me from seeing him.
"You have to work late? Come work from my house. I have a home office with everything you could need. You have plans with friends? Bring them along to dinner with us. I'd love to meet the people who are important to you. You're tired from commuting? Just stay at my place. You'll sleep better in a really comfortable bed, and you can go to work from here." Each offer seemed reasonable and generous on its surface, but the cumulative effect over time was that I spent less and less time alone or with anyone other than Damien. My independence was eroding gradually, without me fully recognizing what was happening until it was too late to easily reverse course. He started buying me clothes, expensive designer pieces, saying he wanted to see me in things that matched the upscale places we went together, that my current wardrobe was too casual for the kind of events we'd be attending, that he wanted me to feel confident and beautiful. He'd have his personal assistant arrange spa appointments and salon visits, so I'd look polished and put together when we appeared together at industry events or charity functions. He bought me a new iPhone because mine was 2 generations old, and he wanted me to have better technology for work and for staying in touch with him. He offered to pay off my student loans, almost $35,000, as a birthday gift when I turned 27. I hesitated at each escalation, feeling increasingly uncomfortable with the level of financial involvement and the way it created obligation and debt, even though Damien insisted they were gifts with no strings attached. But he was skilled at making his generosity seem like the natural thing someone would do for a partner they cared about, making my hesitation seem like distrust or ingratitude. "This is what people do in relationships, Maya," he'd say when I'd express discomfort about accepting expensive gifts. "They support each other and help each other and share resources and want to make each other's lives better and easier. Why does it bother you when I want to make your life easier? Are you looking for reasons to push me away? Are you looking for excuses to not let yourself be happy?" About 4 months into our relationship, I noticed that my performance at work was suffering significantly. I was distracted during work hours, thinking about Damien or responding to the constant stream of texts from him that required immediate responses. I was tired because I was staying at his estate most nights, and the commute to my office downtown was much longer from there than from my own apartment, adding an extra hour and a half to my day. I was missing deadlines because my schedule had become unpredictable, built around Damien's availability and his needs rather than around my own work commitments and responsibilities. My boss at TechFlow Solutions pulled me aside for a serious conversation about my declining performance and whether personal issues were affecting my work. I assured her it was just temporary stress from adjusting to a new relationship, and I'd get back on track soon. But that night, when I mentioned to Damien that I'd been reprimanded at work, his response was not what I expected. "Maybe it's a sign that you've outgrown that job anyway," he said. "You're talented enough to be doing much more important and interesting work than what they have you doing there. They don't appreciate you the way they should. Why don't you just quit? I'll support you financially while you figure out what you really want to do with your career. You could take some time to explore options without the pressure of needing a paycheck." The offer was tempting because I was stressed and exhausted, and the job had become a source of anxiety rather than satisfaction. But quitting would make me completely financially dependent on Damien, which felt dangerous, even though I couldn't articulate exactly why at the time.
I said I wanted to keep my job, that I just needed to find better balance between work and our relationship, that my career was important to me and I didn't want to give it up. Damien's expression tightened in that way I was starting to recognize meant he was displeased, but trying to hide it. Of course, if you want to keep working yourself to exhaustion at a job that doesn't appreciate you and doesn't pay you what you're worth, that's your choice to make, he said. I just hate seeing you stressed and unhappy when I could easily solve that problem for you. But I understand that independence is important to you, even if it means you're miserable. The pressure continued from different angles over the following weeks. Damien would make pointed comments about how tired I looked, how stressed I seemed, how my job was clearly affecting my health and our relationship quality. He'd schedule surprise weekend trips to places like Napa or the San Juan Islands without asking if I could get time off work, then act hurt and disappointed when I said I couldn't go because I had deadlines. He'd plan important dinners with his business associates or friends on nights when I had critical work projects due, making me choose between my career obligations and his expectations for our relationship, making me feel guilty regardless of which I prioritized.
5 months into our relationship with Damien, I quit my job at TechFlow Solutions. He'd worn me down with constant pressure and offers of financial support, and comments about how much better my life would be if I just let him take care of me and stop trying to maintain an independence that was clearly making me unhappy. Damien celebrated my resignation by taking me on a vacation to the Maldives, a week of absolute luxury at a private resort that cost more than I used to make in 6 months, making the decision to quit feel like it had been the right choice that deserved to be rewarded. Without my job, I had no independent income of my own. I moved into Damien's main estate permanently because it didn't make sense financially to keep paying rent on an apartment I was never at and that Damien said was a waste of money. My entire life became structured around Damien's schedule and preferences and needs and expectations. I'd wake up when he woke up because he liked having breakfast together, eat meals when and what he decided because he had particular preferences about food and nutrition, attend events he chose because networking was important for his business and he wanted me there with him, spend time with people he invited to the house because he decided who was worth our time and attention. My own friends gradually disappeared from my life because I was never available when they reached out, always busy with something Damien had planned, and because Damien would make subtle but consistent negative comments about them that made me defensive. Jenna and I hadn't spoken since the party incident months ago, which Damien knew the full story about and would reference occasionally when the topic of friendship came up. You're better off without friends who have such poor judgment about relationships and such weak moral character, he'd say. You deserve people in your life who are loyal and trustworthy and who have values that match yours. My family lived across the country in Arizona, and I talked to them less and less frequently over time because calls home always involved Damien hovering nearby, listening to my side of the conversation, and then asking detailed questions afterward about what we'd discussed and expressing strong opinions about my family that made me feel defensive and protective, even when his criticisms weren't entirely wrong. The isolation happened so gradually that I didn't fully recognize it was happening until I was thoroughly alone, with Damien as my only real source of social interaction and emotional support and financial security and daily companionship. About 7 months into living with Damien full-time at his estate, I started noticing things that made me deeply uncomfortable, but that I struggled to name or address directly because they seemed small when viewed in isolation, even though together they created an unmistakable pattern of control and domination over every aspect of my existence. He'd go through my phone regularly and systematically while I was in the shower or asleep or distracted with something else, reading my text messages and emails and social media DMs, and even my deleted items and browsing history, then questioning me about specific conversations or posts he didn't like or understand. He'd defend this invasion of privacy by saying it was completely normal for couples to be transparent with each other and have no secrets, that healthy relationships meant sharing everything, including phone access, that if I had nothing to hide, then I shouldn't mind him looking.
When I objected that it felt like surveillance and violated my privacy, he'd accuse me of hiding something or being suspicious, saying only people with something to hide worry about their partners seeing their phone. He'd criticize my appearance constantly and in increasingly harsh ways, making detailed negative comments about my weight or my skin or my hair or my makeup or my clothes, suggesting I wasn't putting enough effort into looking good for him, telling me which specific outfits he wanted me to wear each day, and getting visibly annoyed or even angry when I chose something different from his selection. He'd compare me unfavorably to other women we encountered, saying things like, "She takes care of herself," or "She clearly makes an effort with her appearance," in ways that made it clear I was falling short of his standards. He'd make me weigh myself daily and comment on any fluctuation, suggesting diets or exercise regimens I should follow, controlling what I ate at meals to ensure I maintained what he considered an acceptable weight. He'd make decisions about my life without consulting me first, or getting my input, or even informing me until after the fact. He'd sign me up for fitness classes he thought I should take, booking sessions with personal trainers and sending me calendar invites as if my agreement was assumed. He'd make appointments for me with cosmetic dermatologists or plastic surgeons to discuss procedures he thought would improve my appearance, improvements I'd never expressed interest in, but that he'd decided were necessary.
He'd schedule social events on my calendar without asking if those dates worked for me or if I wanted to attend, telling me what we'd be doing and who we'd be seeing rather than asking if I was interested. When I tried to push back against any of these behaviors or express discomfort with how controlling they felt, he'd either dismiss my concerns entirely as if they weren't legitimate or worth addressing, or he'd flip them back on me in ways that made me question my own perceptions and reactions. "You're being overly sensitive and emotional about completely reasonable things. I'm trying to help you be your best self and reach your potential. Why are you so defensive about suggestions that are obviously meant to help you? Don't you trust me to have your best interests at heart after everything I've done for you? Don't you appreciate all the time and money and energy I invest in this relationship and in making you better?" The gaslighting was constant and sophisticated and effective. I started feeling genuinely confused and crazy, questioning whether my discomfort was legitimate or whether I was the problem, whether I was being ungrateful for all the things Damien had done for me and given me, whether I was somehow failing at being a good partner and should be more appreciative and compliant. The isolation from other people accelerated during this period as well. Damien had opinions about every person in my life, and those opinions were almost universally negative, in ways that made me defensive, but that also planted seeds of doubt about my relationships. "Your sister seems codependent and needy, always asking you for emotional support but never giving anything back. Your parents are controlling and manipulative, trying to tell you how to live your life when you're an adult. Your friends from college are immature and still living like they're in their early 20s instead of growing up. Why do you waste time on people who clearly don't add any value to your life?" He'd schedule things during times I'd planned to call family or meet friends, then act hurt and rejected if I tried to keep my original plans. "I thought we were spending today together. Why is a phone call with your sister more important than time with me?" He'd hover during any phone calls I did make with family, listening to my side of the conversation and asking detailed questions afterward, picking apart things I'd said or things my family had said, offering his analysis of their motives and making me doubt my perceptions of people I'd known my entire life. He'd invite himself along any time I made plans to see friends, making the interactions awkward and tense because my friends clearly didn't like him or were uncomfortable around him but felt obligated to be polite. Then he'd criticize my friends afterward, pointing out their flaws and shortcomings, suggesting I could do better in terms of the company I kept. Gradually, I stopped trying to maintain relationships outside of my relationship with Damien because it was easier than dealing with the constant criticism and interference and having to defend every interaction to someone who seemed determined to disapprove of everyone in my life except himself. The breaking point came at another party at Damien's estate, almost exactly 1 year after the first party where we'd initially met and started this whole relationship. Damien had been drinking more heavily than usual that night, which always made him more aggressive and less careful about maintaining the charming facade he showed to most people outside our private life.
We were in a sitting room off the main entertaining area with some of his business associates and their wives or girlfriends, and Damien started telling stories about me that were humiliating and demeaning and made me want to disappear. He talked about how I'd been essentially nothing before he met me, working a mediocre job that any college graduate could do and living in a tiny studio apartment that was basically a closet, how he'd elevated me to a better life with opportunities I never could have accessed on my own.
He made detailed comments about my body and my appearance, critiquing specific parts of me in ways that made everyone uncomfortable and made me feel exposed and ashamed. He told stories about arguments we'd had or mistakes I'd made, carefully framing every anecdote to make me look irrational and dramatic and impossibly difficult, and lucky to be with someone as patient and generous as him who put up with my flaws. I sat there feeling smaller and smaller with each story, my face burning with shame, unable to defend myself without making a scene or contradicting Damien in front of his important guests and business partners. After about 20 excruciating minutes of this public humiliation, I couldn't take it anymore. I excused myself, saying I needed to use the bathroom, and went down the hallway, locked myself in a guest bathroom, and cried. When I came out about 10 minutes later, Damien was waiting in the hallway. His expression was annoyed and impatient. "Where do you think you're going? Get back in there. You're embarrassing me by disappearing in the middle of conversations and making me look bad in front of my associates." "You were embarrassing me," I said, my voice shaking but determined. "Those stories you were telling weren't funny. You were making fun of me in front of everyone, talking about my body like I wasn't even there, making me look pathetic." Damien's expression went completely cold. "I was telling entertaining stories about our relationship. If you're too insecure to handle some light teasing and self-deprecating humor, that's your problem, not mine. Get back in there right now and stop being so dramatic and oversensitive." "No," I said. "I'm done with this. I'm leaving." "Leaving?" he repeated. "You're leaving the party or you're leaving me? Because if you're leaving me, you should think very carefully about what that means. You have no job anymore, no apartment of your own, no money. Everything you have, I gave you. Where exactly do you think you're going to go?" The reality of my complete dependence on him hit me all at once like a physical blow. He was right. I was completely trapped. I had no independent resources. I'd isolated myself from friends and family. I'd made myself utterly vulnerable to someone who saw me as a possession rather than a partner, as something he owned that wasn't performing to his standards. But staying felt impossible in that moment. "I can't do this anymore," I said. "I need to leave." Damien's laugh was cruel. "Fine, leave then, but you're not taking anything I bought you. That includes the clothes you're wearing and the phone in your pocket and the jewelry I gave you. You want to leave with nothing? Go ahead and try. Try to rebuild your pathetic little life from scratch. See how far you get without my money and my connections and my support." I started crying again, feeling trapped and humiliated and completely powerless. I ran down the hallway toward the grand staircase, needing to get away from him and from the party and from the life I'd somehow let myself be trapped in. Damien didn't follow me down the stairs, but I could hear him laughing as I fled, a sound that still haunts me. That's when I ran crying down the driveway in my torn dress, and the security guard picked me up in the black SUV. Except this time, I realize now with the clarity of hindsight and therapy, getting in that vehicle wasn't an act of kindness or safety. It was Damien maintaining control even over my attempt to escape, making sure I couldn't actually leave his sphere of influence, ensuring that even my desperate flight happened on his terms and under his supervision. The security guard drove me to an upscale hotel downtown, not to my old apartment that I no longer had access to, or to a friend's house, or anywhere I might have actually wanted to go. He checked me into a room that had already been reserved and paid for under Damien's name, handed me a key card and said, "Mr. Westbrook wants you to stay here tonight. He'll come talk to you tomorrow when you've both calmed down and can have a rational conversation." I was too exhausted and defeated to argue or to insist on going somewhere else. I went to the hotel room and collapsed on the bed, fully clothed. The next morning, Damien showed up at 9 a.m. with expensive coffee and pastries from my favorite bakery and apologies that sounded sincere.
I was drunk and I said things I didn't mean, and I'm sorry. I know I hurt you and that wasn't fair. You're incredibly important to me and I don't want to lose you over one bad night. Please come home and we'll work through this together like adults. I should have said no. I should have used that hotel room as a launching point to actually escape, to contact my sister or my parents or old friends or domestic violence resources or literally anyone who could help me get away from Damien permanently. But I was scared and exhausted and had nowhere to go and no resources to get there, and Damien's apology seemed genuine in the moment, and I desperately wanted to believe that things could get better. So I went back to the estate with him. That was my biggest mistake.
Things didn't get better after that night. They got worse. Damien became more controlling, more openly critical, more contemptuous in his treatment of me. The facade of the charming, generous boyfriend who'd pursued me so attentively disappeared entirely in private, replaced by someone who saw me as something he owned that was failing to meet his standards and expectations, as an investment that wasn't paying the returns he'd anticipated. But now I was even more completely trapped than before. I had no money, no job, no apartment, no car. My phone was on Damien's family plan. My health insurance was through coverage he'd purchased. Every single aspect of my life was controlled and provided by him, and he knew it with absolute certainty, and he used that knowledge as a weapon whenever I tried to assert any independence or push back against his control. It took me 6 more agonizing months after that failed escape attempt at the party to finally get away from Damien for real. 6 months of careful planning and preparation and slowly rebuilding resources without Damien noticing what I was doing or suspecting that I was preparing to leave permanently. Every day felt like walking on a tightrope, maintaining the appearance of compliance and acceptance while secretly working toward my escape. I reached out to my family through a secret email account I created at the public library during one of the rare times I was allowed to leave the estate alone, supposedly to return some books that Damien had finished reading. I used one of the library computers to set up a new email address that Damien didn't know about, and I sent a carefully worded message to my sister explaining in vague terms that I was in a difficult situation and needed help, but couldn't talk freely at home. My sister, Rachel, responded within hours, her message full of concern and questions and offers of support. She'd known something was wrong based on how infrequently we'd been talking and how different I'd sounded during our occasional phone conversations, but she hadn't realized the extent of what was happening. We developed a system for communication that wouldn't alert Damien to what was happening. I'd go to the library once a week, ostensibly to browse for new books or to use their research resources for a project I'd told Damien I was working on, and I'd spend time on the computers emailing with Rachel and researching domestic violence resources and escape strategies. Rachel started sending me small amounts of money through Venmo, disguised as payments for random things that wouldn't raise suspicion if Damien saw them in my transaction history. $20 here, $50 there, labeled as splitting the cost of a birthday gift for our mom, or reimbursement for a book I'd supposedly bought for her months ago. Amounts small enough that Damien wouldn't question them when he reviewed my accounts regularly. I saved every penny in a secret envelope hidden in an old shoebox at the back of my closet, behind winter boots I never wore, slowly accumulating enough cash to have options when I was ready to run. I reconnected with old friends through carefully crafted messages sent from library computers, explaining where I'd been for the past year and apologizing for disappearing and asking if they'd be willing to help when I was ready to leave. Most of them responded with immediate offers of support, despite how I'd neglected those friendships during my time with Damien. My friend Sarah from college offered me her couch in Portland whenever I needed it. My former coworker Priya said she'd help me find a new job through her network. My friend Melissa, who'd moved to Phoenix, said her spare bedroom was mine for as long as I needed it.
Having those lifelines in place, knowing I had people who would help me and places I could go, gave me the courage to keep planning even on days when escaping felt impossible. I contacted domestic violence resources through the library computers, reading everything I could find about leaving abusive relationships safely, learning about the most dangerous time being right when you try to leave, because that's when abusers often escalate to violence or extreme measures to maintain control. I learned about protective orders and how to file for them, about documenting abuse and preserving evidence, about creating safety plans that accounted for every possible scenario and contingency. I spoke with counselors through domestic violence hotlines during my library visits, using the library phones instead of my cell phone that Damien monitored, getting advice about my specific situation and what resources were available in my state. I documented Damien's behavior in multiple ways to build evidence in case I needed legal protection, or if he tried to retaliate after I left. I bought a cheap disposable camera at a drugstore during one of my monitored shopping trips, hiding it in the bottom of my purse, and I used it to photograph bruises on my arms from times when Damien had grabbed me too hard, screenshots of cruel text messages displayed on my phone screen, our couple photos where you could see in my eyes and posture how unhappy and scared I was, despite my forced smile. I kept handwritten notes in a small notebook tucked inside a tampon box where I was fairly confident Damien would never look, detailing dates and times and descriptions of specific incidents, recording everything in case I ever needed to prove what had been happening. I wrote down conversations where he'd threatened me, times when he'd destroyed my belongings or prevented me from leaving a room, instances of financial control and deliberate isolation and manipulation. The documentation gave me a sense of control over my narrative and evidence that what I was experiencing was real and serious and not something I was imagining or overreacting to like Damien constantly tried to make me believe. And finally, when I had enough resources and support systems in place and a plan that accounted for as many variables as I could anticipate, I waited for the right opportunity to leave. That opportunity came on a Tuesday morning when Damien had an important business meeting in San Francisco that would keep him away overnight. He left at dawn, driven by his security to the private airport where his company's jet was waiting, and as soon as his car disappeared down the long driveway, I sprang into action, executing the plan I'd been refining for months. I packed a single bag with essentials, clothes and documents and photos and the envelope of cash I'd been saving, moving quickly through the house, gathering things that were mine or had sentimental value. I left behind everything Damien had bought me, all the designer clothes and expensive jewelry and luxury items, because I didn't want him to have any excuse to say I'd stolen from him or to try to use those possessions as leverage to force me to return. I called a taxi from a payphone at the end of the driveway rather than ordering an Uber on my phone that would leave a digital trail, and I had the driver take me to the nearest bus station rather than to the airport, where Damien might think to look for me or where his connections might help him track me down. I bought a bus ticket to Phoenix with cash, choosing a route with multiple stops that would take over 24 hours but that would be harder to trace than a direct flight. I called Rachel from a payphone at the bus station and told her I was coming. I was finally leaving. I'd be in Phoenix in a little over a day, and I'd call again when I arrived safely. Then I turned off my phone completely, removing the battery so the device couldn't be tracked or traced, and I got on the bus, feeling terrified and exhilarated and free for the first time in over a year. The bus ride to Phoenix was long and uncomfortable and nerve-wracking because I kept expecting Damien to somehow find me, to appear at one of the stops demanding I return with him, to use his resources and connections to track me down before I could get away. Every time the bus stopped and new passengers boarded, I'd tense up, scanning faces to make sure none of them were Damien or his security or someone sent to bring me back. But no one came. I made it to Phoenix safely, and Rachel was waiting at the bus station to pick me up, and when I saw her, I broke down crying with relief and exhaustion. I'd made it out. I was free. That same day, we went to the courthouse and I filed for a protective order against Damien, submitting all the documentation I'd collected as evidence that I had reason to fear for my safety if he tried to contact me or force me to return. The judge granted a temporary order immediately based on my testimony and the photos and notes I'd provided, and a hearing was scheduled for 2 weeks later to determine if it should be made permanent. Damien tried to contest the protective order, hiring expensive lawyers to argue that I was lying about the abuse, that I'd been a willing participant in our relationship, that I'd benefited from his generosity and was now making false accusations to damage his reputation. But the evidence I documented was substantial and compelling, and my testimony about specific incidents was consistent and detailed, and ultimately the judge made the protective order permanent for 2 years, with the possibility of extension. Damien was legally prohibited from contacting me or coming within 500 feet of me or my residence or workplace, and I finally felt like I could breathe without looking over my shoulder constantly. The recovery process that followed my escape has been long and painful and ongoing even now, 2 years later. Therapy twice a week for the first year and then once a week ongoing has been essential for processing what happened and understanding how I ended up in that situation and learning to trust myself again. My therapist, Dr. Ellen Morrison, specializes in trauma from intimate partner abuse, and she's been instrumental in helping me recognize the patterns and tactics that Damien used to trap and control me. She helped me understand that Damien deliberately targeted me during a moment of vulnerability when I was crying and upset after witnessing my friend's betrayal, that he positioned himself as a rescuer and protector, which made me feel indebted to him and more likely to overlook red flags later.
She explained how isolation works to make victims dependent on their abusers by cutting them off from other sources of support and different perspectives that might help them recognize the abuse. She helped me see how financial control creates literal dependence that makes leaving incredibly difficult because you have no resources to escape with. She taught me about trauma bonding and why leaving an abusive relationship is so much harder than people who haven't experienced it can understand. I've had to grieve multiple losses from that year with Damien. The loss of my job and my career momentum at TechFlow Solutions, where I'd been building good experience and professional relationships. The loss of my independence and my sense of self as someone capable and competent who could take care of herself. The loss of my savings and my financial security that I'd worked hard to build in my early 20s. The loss of friendships that withered during that year when I was isolated and unavailable, and then embarrassed to reach out after I escaped. The loss of time, over a year of my life that I can never get back and that I spent trapped in an abusive relationship when I could have been building my career and my life in healthy directions. I've had to forgive myself for the choices I made that led me into that relationship and kept me there longer than I should have stayed, for not recognizing the red flags earlier, or for recognizing them but rationalizing them away, for accepting financial support that created dependence, for quitting my job and moving in with Damien when every instinct I had was warning me it was a mistake, for staying after the first time I tried to leave and Damien manipulated me into returning. Dr. Morrison has helped me understand that self-blame isn't productive, and that I'm not responsible for Damien's choices to manipulate and control me, that the fault is his, not mine, but it's still been difficult to fully internalize that truth. I've rebuilt my life slowly from absolute zero. Rachel let me stay with her for 6 months while I got back on my feet, giving me her spare bedroom and helping me navigate systems I needed to access, like unemployment insurance and health insurance, and eventually finding work. I started with temp jobs doing social media work for small companies, rebuilding my portfolio and my professional reputation and my confidence in my skills. Eventually, I landed a permanent position doing social media coordination for a nonprofit that works with domestic violence survivors, work that feels meaningful in ways my previous job never did, because I'm using my experience to help others in similar situations. I found my own apartment after those first 6 months, small and modest, but mine, and paid for with money I earned myself. I've made new friends through work and through social activities, people who know me as the person I am now, rather than the person I was before Damien or during that lost year.
I've re-established relationships with old friends who I'd neglected, apologizing for disappearing and explaining what happened, and being grateful that most of them understood and welcomed me back without judgment. I've strengthened my relationship with my family, especially Rachel, who literally saved my life by helping me escape, and I talk to my parents regularly now without the fear and anxiety that came with Damien monitoring those conversations. I'm still working on fully healing and on believing I deserve good things and healthy relationships. I'm hyper-vigilant about red flags in any new relationships, whether romantic or platonic or professional, watching for signs of controlling behavior or manipulation, or anyone who wants to isolate me or make me dependent. I panic sometimes when people offer help or generosity because I'm afraid of strings being attached or obligation being created. I struggle with trusting my judgment because Damien was so good at making me doubt my perceptions and question my reality. But I'm making progress. I'm dating again, cautiously, having been in a healthy relationship for the past 6 months with someone who respects my boundaries and my independence and my need to take things slowly. I'm building a career I'm proud of. I'm financially independent and stable. I'm surrounded by people who care about me as a person, not as a possession to be controlled. I'm free. When I look back at that night running down Damien's driveway crying and getting into his security guard's SUV, I wish I could go back in time and tell myself to keep running, to find literally any other solution, to never get in that car and never return to his world. But I can't change the past or undo the choices I made in moments of vulnerability and fear. I can only learn from those experiences and use those hard-won lessons to build a better future and to help other people recognize the warning signs before they get trapped like I did. If you're reading this and something about my story resonates with your own situation, if you're in a relationship where someone is using money or rescue or generosity to control you, please know that what you're experiencing isn't love, even if the person claims to love you.
Real love doesn't require you to give up your job or your friends or your family or your independence. Real love doesn't involve constant criticism or surveillance or making all the decisions for you. Real love doesn't trap you in dependence and then hold that dependence over your head as proof that you need the person controlling you. What Damien did to me and what people like him do to their victims is a calculated form of abuse that hides behind wealth and generosity and claims of care and concern. They target people during vulnerable moments when you're more likely to accept help and less likely to question motives. They position themselves as rescuers or saviors or benefactors who are uniquely equipped to solve your problems and make your life better. They're charming and attentive at first, making you feel special and valued, and like you've found someone who really sees you and appreciates you in ways no one else has. But that charm is strategic. The generosity comes with invisible strings attached. The help creates obligation and dependence that they'll exploit later. The attention becomes surveillance. The gifts become chains. The care becomes control. And by the time you realize what's happening, you're already trapped in a situation where leaving seems impossible because you've lost your job and your home and your support network and your financial independence and your sense of self. The warning signs I wish I'd recognized earlier are signs that anyone in a new relationship should watch for. Does the person want to move the relationship forward unusually fast, talking about serious commitment, or moving in together, or making major life changes after only a few weeks or months? Do they offer financial help or gifts that seem disproportionate to how well you know each other or how long you've been dating? Do they want to know where you are all the time and get upset or anxious if you don't respond to messages immediately? Do they have critical opinions about most or all of the important people in your life and encourage you to spend less time with them? Do they frame controlling behavior as concern or care, saying they're worried about you or trying to help you or protecting you from bad influences? Do they make decisions about your life without consulting you first? Do they react badly when you try to set boundaries or assert independence?
Any of these alone might not be a deal breaker, but together they paint a picture of someone who wants control more than they want an equal partnership. Trust your discomfort. Trust your instincts when something feels wrong, even if you can't articulate exactly what the problem is. Don't let someone's wealth or generosity or claims of good intentions override your own perception that something unhealthy is happening. And if you're already in a situation where you feel trapped, please know that escape is possible, even when it feels impossible. It takes planning and support and courage, but people do it every day. Reach out to domestic violence resources. They're there to help, and they have experience with situations exactly like yours. Tell someone you trust what's happening. Breaking the isolation is often the first step toward leaving. Document the abuse if you can, do so safely, keeping records that could help you later. Save money secretly if possible. Even small amounts add up over time and give you options. Make a safety plan that accounts for where you'll go and how you'll get there and what you'll need. And when you're ready, when you have enough resources and support in place, leave. You deserve a life that's yours, not one that's controlled and monitored and dictated by someone else, no matter how wealthy or powerful or charming they are. You deserve relationships built on mutual respect and equality and genuine care that doesn't come with conditions or control. You deserve freedom and independence and the chance to rebuild on your own terms. 2 years out from my escape, I'm living proof that recovery is possible, that you can rebuild after losing everything, that life after abuse can be good and fulfilling and yours.
It's not easy, and it takes time and work and support, but it's worth every difficult step. I'm free. I'm independent. I'm myself again. Or maybe I'm a new version of myself that's stronger and wiser and more aware. And if I can get out and rebuild, so can you. If you're reading this and recognizing your own situation in my story, please know you can get out. It won't be easy and it might take time and planning, but it's possible. Reach out for help. Contact domestic violence hotlines. Tell people you trust what's happening. Document the abuse. Save money secretly if you can. Make a safety plan. And when you're ready, leave. You deserve better than someone who sees you as property to be controlled. You deserve relationships built on respect and equality, not on financial dependence and isolation. You deserve freedom. If this story helped you, I'd love to hear from you in the comments. Where are you listening from? Have you experienced a relationship where someone used wealth or rescue to control you? How did you recognize what was happening and how did you escape? Your story might help someone else. Thank you for listening. Please consider supporting the channel. You can find more stories on my channel. Don't forget to subscribe. See you in the next one.